Persuasion, December 1802. Manydown Park, Hampshire, England. Cold night, flickering candlelight. Jane Austen, 27 years old, an unknown writer, penniless and without prospects, has just done something extraordinary. She said, yes. Harris Bigwither, a family friend, 6 years younger, a landowner of considerable wealth, knelt down and asked for her hand in marriage, and Jane accepted, finally. Financial security, a home of her own, social standing, everything a woman of her time could want. She goes to her room, she lies down, and then can't sleep, because something inside her, something deep, non-negotiable, visceral, is yelling. The following morning, Jane goes downstairs. Take a deep breath, and she says to the suitor, with all the delicacy she is capable of, I made a mistake, I can't marry you. The family is shocked. The mother is furious. The friends are bewildered. Jane just turned down the only marriage proposal she would ever receive in her life. And 13 years later, while dying, she wrote about it. Not directly. Jane Austen was never obvious. She wrote about Anne Elliot, a woman who did the opposite, a woman who said no to love and spent 8 years regretting it. In the next few minutes, you will find out. Why did Jane Austen, while her health mysteriously deteriorated, write the most melancholic and mature novel in English literature? How Persuasion Freud anticipated the tyrannical superego, the inner voice that prevents us from living. Why Anne Elliot is the perfect representation of the Jungian concept of repressed shadow, buried protected things that consume us from the inside. And why in 2026, in an era of life coaches, dating apps, and endless optimization, you are experiencing exactly what Anne experienced in 1814. You're going to meet Anne Elliot, the quietest, most invisible, most heroine-devastatingly real that Jane Austen already created. You'll understand how a woman who succumbed to persuasion at age 19 carried that regret like a chronic illness for almost a decade. And you'll find out why the letter that Captain Wentworth writes at the end of Persuasion is considered the most perfect declaration of love ever written in the English language. This is not academic literary analysis. It's psychological surgery, autopsy of regret. And you're about to discover why Jane Austen, on the verge of death with unbearable back pain, too weak to walk, pleased write this story. If you're ready to answer the question we all avoid, what if I had chosen differently? Leave a like now, because Jane Austen doesn't forgive. She doesn't console. She simply show. Let's begin. The woman who chose truth over convenience. Jane Austen returns home after Harris Bigwither's refusal. She and her sister Cassandra leave Manydown in a hurry. The day after the refusal, embarrassed and ashamed. Mother, Mrs. Austen, you would never completely forgive me, because Jane didn't choose just one man. She decided security. She agreed. She decided that every woman in 1802 should accept it without question. And why? Because, in his own words later in his letters, I could not live a marriage without true love. But here is the torment that Jane would carry for the next 15 years. She didn't know she had made the right choice, because choosing autonomy in 1802 was a wise decision. Eternal financial dependence on siblings, no home of their own, no place for social respect, to live as the single aunt forever. And a year earlier, in 1801, something even worse happened. Steventon's expulsion and depression. Jane's father, Reverend George Austen, decided abruptly to retire. In December 1800, he announced, "We are moving to Bath." Jane wasn't consulted, I had no choice. Steventon, the house where he was born, where he grew up, where he wrote, Pride and Prejudice and Reason and Sensibility. In secret, it would be abandoned. Jane, it collapsed. Carol Shields' biography describes, Steventon's expulsion caused serious practical difficulties and led to such a deep depression in Jane that it incapacitated her as a writer. From 1801 to 1809, 8 years Jane hardly wrote anything. She lived in Bath, which she hated, then in Southampton, always homeless, always dependent. Jung diria, Jane was experiencing the death of her authentic self. The self, the psychic totality, the core of who we are, needs place, it needs roots. When she was torn from Steventon, Jane lost more than just a physical home. She lost the psychic space where I could create. Freud would say, the paternal superego, the voice of the authoritative father, imposed a reality that Jane's ego could not accept, but she had no power to resist. So the ego gave up. Depression is often the surrender of the ego in the face of an unbearable superego. Have you ever lost something? A place, a person, a version of yourself, and felt like a part of you died with it? So you've been where Jane has been, in the depths of melancholy. 1809, 1816, Renaissance and Death. In 1809, Brother Edward offered Jane, Cassandra, and Mrs. Austen a house in Chawton. Small, modest, but of them, Jane reborn. In 7 years, she publishes Reason and Sensibility, 1811, Pride and Prejudice, 1813, Mansfield Park, 1814, Emma, 1815, and it begins, Persuasion in 1815. But while he's writing, his body is failing. Back pain, fever, extreme weakness. She jokes in letters to her niece, it's just bile, it's just rheumatism, but it isn't. In March 1817, she abandoned the manuscript of Sanditon, his latest novel, because he no longer has the strength to hold the pen. In May, he will go to Winchester to seek medical treatment. On July 18, 1817, Jane Austen dies in Cassandra's arms. She was 41 years old. His last words were, "May God give me patience. Pray for me. Oh, pray for me." Cassandra wrote 2 days later, "I lost a treasure, a sister, a friend who could never be surpassed. She was the sun of my life, the ornament of all pleasures, the balm for all sorrows." And Persuasion, the novel about second chances, about regret, about what happens when you let others decide your life, has been published posthumously in December 1817. Jane wrote Persuasion knowing that he was dying, and she needed to answer the question that had tormented her since 1802. What if I had given in? What if I had chosen convenience? What if I had listened to others instead of my own heart? In a few minutes, you will meet Elliot, and you'll understand why Jane Austen created a woman who did the exact opposite of what she did. A woman who said yes when she should have said no, and he paid the price for 8 years. Don't leave now. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what follows is the most brutal psychological dissection of a human soul that 19th century literature has ever produced. Persuasion, autopsy of regret. She had been forced into prudence in her youth. She learned romance as she grew older, the natural consequence of an unnatural beginning. A sim Jane Austen resume Elliot, 27 years old, single, invisible, faded, living in the house of his father, Sir Walter Elliot, a vain narcissist obsessed with titles and appearances, ignored by her older sister Elizabeth, who treats her like a servant, used by her younger sister Mary, who only summons her to complain about imaginary problems. Anne Elliot has no voice. She has no place. She has no presence. But it wasn't always like this. 8 years earlier, Anne was different. She was 19 years old, and she was in love. Frederick Wentworth, a young naval officer, without fortune or connections, but ambitious, brilliant, and passionate. He proposed to her, and Anne wanted to accept. But then Lady Russell enters. Lady Russell, the superego personified. Lady Russell is Anne's godmother, a respectable widow, a close friend of Anne's late mother, and she has very strong opinions. When she discovers the engagement, Lady Russell intervenes. Frederick Wentworth has nothing, no position, no security. He could die in battle. You'll be widowed and poor. That's reckless. That's irresponsible. Freud would say, Lady Russell is the external superego that infiltrates Anne's ego. The superego, the psychic instance that internalizes rules, norms, and morality, is not born fully formed. It is installed by authority figures, parents, teachers, mentors, and Anne, at 19 years old without a mother, without anyone to defend her, internalized Lady Russell's voice as absolute truth. Jung. Anne sacrifices the self, her authentic will, to maintain the persona, the social mask of a prudent and obedient young woman. And this sacrifice, it destroys it from the inside. Anne breaks off the engagement. Wentworth is devastated, furious. He sets sail for the sea. And Anne spends the next 8 years dying slowly. Have you ever made a decision because of external pressure, family, society, what's sensible, and then realized you betrayed yourself, so you know what it's like to carry Anne Elliot inside you? Melancholy as a chronic disease. Jane Austen describes Anne at age 27. The bloom of her youth had faded, but it's not just about physical appearance. Anne is erased. She doesn't shine. She doesn't laugh. She doesn't live. There is, and that's bad. Freud would say, Anne suffers from melancholy, unlike ordinary grief. In grief, you lose someone and eventually recover. In melancholy, you lose a part of oneself and never gets it back. Anne lost Frederick Wentworth 8 years ago, but more profoundly, she lost the 19-year-old Anne who was capable of love, desire, and choice. And now she carries that loss like a wound that will never heal. Jung. Anne repressed her shadow, sexual desire, rebellion, self-determination, so completely that her authentic self was buried alive. Now she lives only as persona, the obedient daughter, the helpful aunt, the good girl without a life of her own. And the repressed shadow, it consumes vital energy from the inside out. Have you ever felt only half alive, present only in body, but absent in soul? Share this video with someone who has been living on autopilot for years, because maybe there's still time to wake up. The reunion, when the shadow returns, 1814, 8 years later. The Elliot family, as a separate entity, rents out the family property, Kellynch Hall, to Admiral Croft, brother-in-law of Frederick Wentworth. Wentworth, now Captain Wentworth, made his fortune in the war, rich, well-off, eligible, and he's returning to the region. When Anne finds out, she almost faints. For 8 years, he couldn't think about him, or at least try. But now he's in the way, and she's going to have to see him. Freud said, Wentworth's return is their turn of the repressed. Everything Anne buried, desire, hope, pain, love, is about to explode to the surface, and the ego has no qualified defenses. Jung. The shadow, denied for 8 years, is returning in full force, and Anne either integrates this shadow, accepts desire, regret, truth, or it is destroyed by it. They meet again. Wentworth is polite, cold, distant. He treats her like a stranger. And Anne realized he made the proposal. Or worse, he is indifferent. And indifference towards someone you love deeply is worse than hate, because hatred is still a bond. Indifference is empty. Over the next few days and weeks, Anne watches Wentworth from afar. He flirts with the Musgrove sisters, young, lively, carefree, everything that Anne is no longer, and she helps, silently, invisibly, dying inside. Iron the piano scene, communication without words. There's a soiree tonight. Anne, to escape the unbearable conversations, sits down at the piano and plays. Wentworth is in the room, talking to other people, pretending she doesn't exist. But then, he approaches. He stands behind her. He says nothing, and Anne continues playing. My fingers trembled on the keys. She feels his presence, physical, magnetic, unbearable. No dialogue, just proximity. Jane Austen. Her fingers were trembling so much that she could barely touch them. Freud said, "The body, it speaks what the mind represses." Anne cannot say, "I still love you." She cannot say, "I regret it every day." But the body screams, Jung diese. This is the language of the unconscious. Gestures, tremors, silences. The self is trying to communicate despite the persona. Wentworth, he feels it too, because he comes closer. He stays there. He doesn't leave. If it were just indifference, he would have left. But it won't, because something within him, his shadow, his repressed desire, is also alive. Have you ever been close to someone and felt the air change? Felt that everything, without a single word, was being said? So you know how Anne felt that night. Jealousy. When Wentworth breaks weeks later. Bath. Anne is talking to her cousin, Mr. Elliot. Charming, interested, clearly courting her. Wentworth this, and something about it, break. Because up until that moment, Wentworth believed that Anne was his. There is no sense of possession, but it doesn't make sense that the complaint, it was reserved just for him, that she spent 8 years lamenting losing him. But now, is she smiling at another man? Is she moving on? Freud said, jealousy is the activation of the id, a primitive, territorial, irrational impulse. She was mine. She still is mine. No one else can have her. Jung dis. Wentworth is facing his own shadow, the fear of having lost Anne forever, and this fear forces him to act, because until now he had been protecting himself, feigning indifference, but seeing Anne with another man blows all her defenses away, and he does the only thing he can do. He writes. The letter, the greatest declaration of love in English literature. Anne is in a room with several people. Wentworth is writing a letter at the next table, and then he finishes. He folds it quickly and leaves. Anne picks up a letter. Yes, but I can no longer remain silent. I need to speak with you by any means available to me. You pierce my soul. I am torn between agony and hope. Tell me it's not too late, that these precious feelings haven't been lost forever. You tell me that men forget faster than women, that their love fades sooner. I don't believe that. My soul corresponds to yours. My affections and desires remain unchanged. I may have acted unfairly. I may have shown defeat and resentment, but I have never been inconsistent. You alone brought me a bath. It is only for you that I think and plan. One word from you, one look will be enough. Here it is. The little ones are trembling. The body shoots. And for the first time in 8 years, she is breathing. Jane Austen, Freud et Jung, The Psychology of Regret Persuasion. It was published in 1817. Freud was born in 1856, 39 years later. Jung was born in 1875, 58 years later. And yet Jane Austen had already mapped everything out. What Jane Austen discovered before Freud. 1. Tyrannical superego and repression. Lady Russell is the external voice that Anne internalizes as absolute law. Be prudent. Be sensible. Don't trust your feelings. Freud systematized this as superego, a psychic instance that imposes moral rules, often impossible ones. When the superego is hypertrophied, very strong, it crushes the ego, and the result is paralysis, melancholy, a life without desire. Anne lived for 8 years under a superego that said, "You made the right choice, you were prudent," but the id, the impulses, the desires, kept screaming, "You betrayed yourself." And the ego, crushed between the two, simply, he gave up on life. 2. Melancholy versus mourning. Freud distinguished. Cooked, you lose something external and with time, you recover it. Melancholy, you lose a part of your own ego and never fully recover. Anne didn't just lose Wentworth, she lost it. Anne capable of choosing for herself, and this loss of habit haunted me for 8 years. 3. Moral masochism. Freud described the moral masochism, when the superego punishes the ego with guilt and psychological self-flagellation. Anne punished herself every day. I deserved to lose Wentworth. I was a coward. I didn't have the courage, even if she deliberately justified it by saying, I was being prudent. Subconsciously, she knew. I betrayed my own heart. What Jane Austen discovered before Jung. 1. A repressed shadow. Jung defining the shadow like everything we deny in ourselves. Desires, impulses, qualities that contradict the persona, the social mask. Anne reprimanded. Sexual desire, rebellion, self-determination, anger against Lady Russell. She created a persona of a good, prudent, obedient girl. And the shadow, everything that was alive, desired, authentic, was buried alive, but the shadow never dies. It consumes energy from the inside out. That's why Anne lost the bloom of youth, not because of age, because psychic repression. 2. Persona versus self-authentic. Jung distinguishes. Person, the social mask we wear. Self, the psychic totality, who we really are. Anne was featured in persona. She was the useful daughter, the helpful aunt, the prudent young woman. But the authentic self, the passionate, desiring, vibrant Anne, was imprisoned. And when Wentworth returns, the self shouts, I still exist, I still desire, I still love. 3. Aborted and rescued individuation. Jung via individuation, like the process of becoming whole, integrating conscious and unconscious, persona and shadow, ego and self. Anne spent 8 years in aborted individuation. She didn't become whole. She became half, but when Wentworth writes the letter, he offers something radical. You can come back. You can integrate. You can be whole again. And Anne, for the first time in 8 years, choose. Not because Lady Russell said so, not because it is prudent, but why your truly authentic self finally has a voice. Why did Jane Austen arrive first? Freud and Jung were scientists. They constructed theories. They conducted experiments. Jane Austen, Iran, experiential artist. She refused a marriage of convenience, 1802. He lived his entire life without financial security. He was evicted from his home, 1801, and fell into a deep depression. He wrote Persuasion while died of a mysterious illness. She doesn't need to theorize about regrets. She lived an opposite choice to Anne's, and he asked himself, every day, what if I had given in? What if I had chosen safety? Persuasion, that's the answer. It's Jane saying, If I had given in, I would have died inside, like Anne died. But also, what if there's a second chance? What if it's not too late? If you've made it this far, write in the comments, I deserved a second chance, because maybe you deserve it. Today, Persuasion and the epidemic of delayed life. 208 years later, Persuasion. We live in a world that Jane Austen predicted with terrifying results. 1. The collective superego of social networks. Anne was persuaded by Lady Russell, a person. In 2026, we will be persuaded by millions. Influencers telling you how to live. Algorithms optimizing each choice. Anonymous comments judging each decision. Metrics, likes, views, followers, defining value. The superego is no longer a godmother. It is a ubiquitous digital cloud which says, be productive, be optimized, be sensible, don't take risks, don't overthink. And like Anne, we internalize that voice as truth, and we live lives that seem right, but they're not. Dead inside. 2. Frozen regret. Anne spent 8 years frozen in regret. In 2026, people stay in dead relationships because they've already invested so much time. They stay in careers they hate because it's the sensible thing to do. ADM dreams until he has financial security, which never comes. Freud would call this compulsion to reproduce, repeating destructive patterns because change is terrifying. Jung would call it refusal of individuation, preferring a comfortable social mask to the risk of being authentic. 3. The illusion of the perfect second chance. Anne was extraordinarily lucky. Wentworth returned. But in 2026, dating algorithms sell us the illusion. There are always more options. There's always someone better. There's always a second chance. And the result? Paralysis due to too much choice. We swipe endlessly. We never choose the truth. Because choosing means closed doors and closing doors means risk. Anne closed the wrong door at 19, but at least she lived 8 years with the truth of regret. We, in 2026, live with the illusion that we never have to choose, and this illusion keeps us frozen, just like Anne. 4. The price of prudence. Lady Russell told Anne, be prudent. In 2026, the culture says, optimize, plan, don't be impulsive, wait for the right moment. And we wait, and we wait, and suddenly, 8 years have passed. Freud would say, the cultural superego paralyzes us with fear disguised as wisdom. Jung would say, the persona, the mask of the responsible adult, kills the authentic self, which wants to take risks, live, and make mistakes. 5. Emotional invisibility. Anne was invisible within her own family. No one saw her. No one heard her. In 2026, we post constantly, but nobody really sees us. We have hundreds of friends, but none of them know our pain. We share healed personas, but hide the self. And like Anne, we live half alive, visible on the surface, invisible in the soul. Write in the comments, which is your Wentworth? The love you let go of? A career abandoned for safety? The dream that was postponed until the right moment? The version of yourself that you betrayed? Share this with someone who is putting off their own life, waiting for permission, because maybe there's still time, or maybe not. But living frozen in maybe is worse than any complaint. The way out of Persuasion, or How Anne Resurrected. Persuasion, it ends with redemption. Anne and Wentworth are reunited. The letter is written. They get married. But Jane Austen, always subtle, always realistic, makes it clear it wasn't magic. It was a choice. Anne needed to do something she hadn't done in 8 years. Choose for yourself. When she reads Wentworth's letter, she might hesitate, as he did at 19, consultant Lady Russell, weighing the pros and cons, to be prudent. But no, she's going after him intermittently, and when they meet, Anne doesn't apologize. She doesn't justify herself. She simply accepted. I was wrong. I gave in when I shouldn't have, but now I make a choice. Leaving the persuaded life requires 1. Recognizing the shadow. I suppressed my desires. I betrayed my heart. I lived for external approval. As long as you deny this, the shadow will consume your life. 2. Killing the tyrannical superego. The voice that says be prudent needs to die. Not completely, but it needs to be. Stop giving orders. Prudence is important, but prudence without desire is death. 3. Integrate persona and self. You don't need to destroy a social mask, but it is necessary. Stop confusing yourself with who you really are. Anne was the useful daughter, but she was also the woman who loves Wentworth. Both can coexist, but the self needs to have priority. 4. Accept that regret is part of life. Anne lived 8 years in regret, and when she reconciles with Wentworth, she doesn't erase those 8 years. She the Mintigra. I made mistakes. I suffered. I learned. Freud would say, you don't heal trauma by erasing it. You heal it, integrating it into the ego. 5. Acting despite fear. Anne, I don't expect to be sure. She didn't wait for guarantees. She read the letter and he was. Because life offers no guarantees. It only offers choices. And choosing, even with fear, even with risk, is the only way to escape paralysis. Jane Austen's gift to you. Jane Austen died on July 18, 1817. She was 41 years old. Mysterious illness, unbearable pain. She recited her last poem, Benta, just hours before collapsing. His last words were, "May God give me patience. Pray for me." His funeral in Winchester was a low-key affair, but his work was resurrected millions. Why? Because Jane Austen did something extraordinary. She told the truth about the price of living other people's lives. This is not the life you want, the life that I approve. And Persuasion, it is her final testament. It's Jane saying, you are capable of great love and great cowardice. You want autonomy, but you fear judgment. You know what you want, but you give in to the pressure. You are alive, but living only half a life. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's not too late. Jane Austen's gift is not comfort. It is a merciless mirror. When you read Persuasion, don't leave thinking, what a beautiful story. You leave thinking, how many years have I wasted potential on approval? And that thought, that pain, is the beginning of everything. Because you can't change what you don't see. You cannot live what you do not choose. Comment. Share this video with someone who, he's stuck in a dead relationship waiting for the right moment. He postponed his dreams to be prudent. He spends his time asking for approval instead of choosing. Jane Austen won't save you. She just holds the mirror while you die of caution. What do you do after you see yourself? It depends on you. Can I generate more scripts for other works or refine this one?